Hey, Miss Harry's class, I want to teach a quick lesson about the sounds for inflected ending ED. In your school's PLP, you will have a couple of videos on this as well. You'll probably have one today, which is Thursday, and then you will have one on Friday. So, sounds for ED, inflected ending ED. 3 sounds. You will either hear the t sound, the d sound, or the id sound. So I'm going to add little sound lines around these words. So inflected ending ed can be put at the end of a base word. Now we know that a base word is the smallest unit of spoken language that has meaning. That would be like the word I, me, bat. Any word that makes sense is a base word. Sometimes you can add endings or beginnings to those words. Beginnings of the words would be called prefixes. And then if we add an ending to the word, that's called a suffix or an inflected ending. And again, that's what we're talking about is inflected ending or suffix ed. Ed's got 3 different sounds. Sometimes it will say t, sometimes it will say d, and sometimes it will say id. Now, t is an unvoiced sound. We've gone over how letters can either be voiced or unvoiced. Letter sounds can. So if you say a word and the consonant before it is unvoiced, its ed is going to make the t sound. If you say a word and the consonant before the inflected ending ed is voiced, you're going to make the d sound. And if the word ends in t or d, then ed is going to make the id sound. So I want you to put your 2 fingers on your throat, and we're going to go over voiced and unvoiced sounds. So say the sound for T, say t. If your fingers did not wiggle, then that means that that's an unvoiced sound. So we're going to go through all of these sounds, and you're going to see how they're all unvoiced. You don't use your voice. T, k, p, s, ch, sh. Your fingers did not move at all. That's because you weren't using your voice to make any of those sounds. Now let's go over here to the voiced sound for inflected ending ed, which is d. Now put 2 fingers on your throat. You're not jabbing it. You're just lightly laying your fingers on your throat. The sound for D, say d, d. Did you feel your fingers wiggle? That means you're using your voice. So let's go and name all these sounds because they're voiced. You're going to feel it. All right, d, b, g, j, l, v, w, y, z. So all of those sounds, your fingers wiggled because you were using your voice. Now, when a word ends with T or D, you're going to make the id sound for inflected ending ed. Because if a word ended with T, or if it ended with, and you tried to say the T sound, like in the word want, the word want, when we add ed to want, it becomes wanted. If we tried to say wanted, that wouldn't make sense. Or wanted, that wouldn't make sense. So it's wanted. I've got some words and I'm going to say them, and what we're going to do is decide what sound the inflected ending ed is making in the words that I say. So I'm erasing these. So we're going to have to listen. We can even feel our throat to figure out if the last consonant is voiced or unvoiced. And we're going to decide what sound we hear at the very end of the word. What sound is ed making in these words? So The first word that we're going to decide, we have to decide if it's unvoiced ed, voiced ed, or if it's id. The word is called. Called. I called my mom yesterday. Called. So my base word is call. Call. Ooh, I felt my voice. So we add ed at the end and it becomes called. What do you hear? T, d, or id in called. I hear d. So let's write, I will write the word called. It's C-A-L-L-E-D. I'm going to put a box around my inflected ending. It is ed, inflected ending ed is making the d sound. The next word I have is talked. Talked. So my base word is talk. When we add inflected ed to the end, it becomes talked. I hear t. So talk. Talked. K is at the end. K is an unvoiced sound. So we will write the word talked under T because ed is making the t sound. We have talk, t, talk, t, t. Go back to called, called, called. It's making the d sound. Your next word is munched. 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 I munched on an apple. Munched. Munch. Ch, ch. So the base word is munch. I hear t at the end. So the word is munched. M-U-N-C-H-E-D. Munched. ED is making the t sound. This word, added. Added. My base word is add. When we put inflected ending ed at the end, it becomes added. Yesterday, we added 3 more chairs to the table. Added. What do you hear? Here, add, id. Add, id. Added. I hear ID. So let me write and show you. We have A-D-D-E-D. That's the word added. 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 So ED, inflected ending ED, is making the id sound in that word. The last word we're going to try is printed. Printed. I went to the computer and printed off my grocery list. Printed. My base word is print. When I add inflected ending ed to the end, it's printed. Printed. So I hear t at the end of print. If a word ends with D or T, the inflected ending ed makes the id sound. So printed. Print. Id. Printed. Printed. Not pretty. Printed. Printed. So the 3 sounds for inflected ending ed, the 3 sounds for ed, we have unvoiced, we have t, which will go if the final consonant is unvoiced. Ed makes the t sound, so we put it under t. When a base word ends with a voiced sound, like called, the ed, inflected ending ed, makes the d sound. If your base word, like add or in print, if the base word add ends in D or T, then your inflected ending ed makes the id sound. So we have talked, munched, called, added, printed. Okay, that was a quick lesson on inflected ending ed. with this video and your school's PLP that you're going to do. And then I have another video in there as well. This should give you a good base for what to know for your inflected ending ED sounds. And then if you have any questions or anything, I will answer those for you on Monday. We'll review these again. All right. Have fun, and I'll see you guys on Monday.